certainly want to increase their income. They want more freedom and they want more time. Getting more money from your time, and by doing that, you'll have more time to focus on how you're going to grow your business. Control what you can control. If your staff inevitably are going to leave, they will really leave if they're dissatisfied with what they're doing. Begin with the questions that your potential customers are asking about your service, your industry, your offer.
On this week's episode of The Engaging Marketeer, I am speaking to Rod Kuchta, who is a business coach that helps UK-based small businesses take back control of their businesses, their lives, and their time. So I'm going to be having the age-old discussion with Rod about what happens when businesses don't do this. What happens when businesses insist on maintaining control and not empowering their staff? What happens when businesses are too afraid to hire, to expand? And where does that leave them when they reach that inevitable retirement? So you help businesses with their streamlining themselves, getting themselves better, basically growing and expanding. Is that a fair assessment of what it is?
It's a fair assessment, but there's a greater mix than that, because it can be, and commonly is, business owners who have started their business with a vision in mind. This is what I want this business to return to me. Inevitably, what happens is the business owner then gets into the day-to-day of running their business. And when you're stuck in the middle of running that business, it gives you very little time and capacity to work out how you're going to grow it. So inevitably, owners come to me when they're in a situation of what I can best describe as completely stuck. I started this with a vision in mind. I have no idea how far I am from that vision, because all I do every day is come into work, and work has become a job. It absorbs all of my time. It doesn't pay me enough a lot of the time. It's not structured well enough for me to do anything with, and I just don't know what to do to change it. And that's not uncommon, because that's what I call being trapped in the storm.
Do you find most businesses, or business owners I should say, actually start their business with a vision rather than just fall into it by accident?
In my experience, business owners start with one of or all three of the following in mind. They certainly want to increase their income, they want more freedom, and they want more time. And inevitably, it's those three things that they set out with the vision to achieve that they fail to get, because they get drawn into the business. The first thing I do with them is always the same. Let's find your gap. How far are you now from what you wanted to achieve? What are you going to do next to get there? And what's stopping you from taking that action?
This is very similar, actually, to a post I've just put out on LinkedIn today. I know. It's about me not doing any work. Because people take the piss out of me in the office for doing that, but it's true, I don't really do anything. And when I'm at networking meetings, people ask, what is it that you do? And most people will say, oh, I'm a web designer, or I'm an accountant, or I'm a financial advisor. I say, I don't really do anything. I try to do as little as possible, if that's in any way possible. But I've explained how I don't mean that flippantly. I genuinely do try to do as little as possible. It's about scaling a business so that people do it for you. And I worked out today, I've not designed a website in almost 5 years.
Right.
And in that time, Engage Web's built over 130 websites. I've had no hand in any of them, even though I used to be the only person here that built websites. I speak to loads of business owners, you probably do as well, that say, I want to get off the tools. I need to get off the tools. But what stops them from doing that? And is it industry specific? Is it trades that suffer from that more than others?
Trades suffer from it quite frequently. What you've managed to achieve is something that I have just shared a post about in this last week, which is about empowering your team. Because once your team is empowered, you are then free to focus on growing your business. And you've mentioned trades there. I spoke to a new client for the first time earlier this week, and he said to me, my phone just won't stop ringing. And I've got too much work, I'm either turning it away or I'm giving it to other companies who do what I do, but they're not giving me anything for it. They're just taking what I'm giving to them. So what do you think I should do? I said, put your prices up. Well, if I put my prices up, I won't get as many jobs. You won't be giving away as much work. That much is true. But what you will be doing is getting more money from your time. And by doing that, you'll have more time to focus on how you're going to grow your business. That's not uncommon either. People are too busy because they're not charging enough money.
Yeah. Do you know, we've had that exact conversation many times with clients. We don't need to increase our marketing. We don't need to do anything to get more business in because we can't handle the business we've got. We're too busy and we can't afford it anyway. So, what do you mean you can't afford it, but you're too busy? Put your prices up. Oh, no, we can't do that because then customers will stop using us. Then you'll be working less for the same amount of money. What? And it doesn't quite click with some people that you need to. I mean, we put our prices up for a lot of our services, either every 1 or every 2 years. And our clients know that's happening. You've got to do it. If you keep worrying about the cost and your competitors being cheaper than you, you'll lose people to your competitors. You'll end up working 18, 20 hours a day for very little money, and you'll just burn yourself out and send yourself into an early grave.
Yeah. If you look at the percentages on it, if you were to increase, or a business was to increase its prices by 20% and lose 20% of its customer, its net income would still be higher than it was previously. And they would still have now more time to focus on, right, now we've got the time to grow the business. Let's work out what we're going to do to grow the business, but attract the customers that we actually want to work with, who will pay us the prices that we require for them to work with us.
What you said about empowering your team, I think, is critical there. Empowering them to make decisions, empowering them to take responsibility, to take ownership.
Yeah.
I can think of 1 or 2 businesses off the top of my head. One of them's not even a trade, who refused to empower their team. They had staff.
Then they'll be stuck, won't they?
They absolutely, they had staff, but they would not give them responsibility. They would not give them the control, and they wanted to control everything themselves. And they just end up with no staff and no time to do anything, and mistakes are made, and things go amiss. What do you think are the big problems with businesses not being able to do this? What is it that's stopping them from growing?
So, let me see if I can answer that in a slightly different way, by what happens when you do go through the empowerment experience with your team, right? So it's a really positive impact all round. First of all, the team feel trusted. They feel in control. Their emotion towards their customer completely changes, as does their behavior. The customer then senses a confident business with happy staff, which makes them want to work with them more often. So I want to work with your company because your company gives me a good feeling. So that's the outcome of doing it. What prevents people from doing it? It's a mix, but actually the most common theme is, I know it will get done if I do it myself. I know it will get done properly. But are you any good at it, is the question I often ask them, right? So the things you're talking about doing, how much of your time do they take up? Because the one thing that you have to start educating yourself on is stop doing the things you're shit at. Give them to the people who are good at them, trust them to do it well, but to your standard. So there has to be a standard in place, and the owner gets to set the standard. Then what the owner is doing is saying, is my standard being met? Once they've achieved that, they've got an empowered team who feel happy, confident, and empowered to do the things they need to do and make the decisions for those things. What do they want to do? They want to stay where they're working. And now we see revenue increase, profitability increase, profit can be shared with that empowered team. They're now getting paid more. They feel trusted, responsible, and they feel needed and valuable to the company, and they're getting paid more and more for doing it. So the outcomes are only ever positive. They're only negative if you do not set the standard that people should work to. There's no point in just saying, right, okay, you do that, if that person isn't any good at doing that, and if you haven't given them a standard to work to. Because you know what they'll do? They'll make mistakes. Mistakes are okay, but if they make mistakes without guidance and you then blame them for doing it wrong and you haven't guided them in the first place, well, don't be surprised if it blows back on you.
So one of the things we've done is we've procedurized everything within the business. Every task that needs to be done, there are processes and procedures for it, so that when somebody else takes it up, they know what to follow. That is the guidebook for the business. So that if the day comes we oversell the business, that's it. They don't need what's in my head, because there's quite frankly, there's nothing in my head. It's completely empty. If I get hit by a bus or a train, it's not going to matter. But it'll matter to me, obviously, and I'm sure 2 or 3 people might be bothered about it, probably the train driver. But everybody else, it's not going to affect it. That can carry on. Because I've always said, and I don't know if you agree with this, that unless you really, really enjoy doing something in your business and you get an absolute endorphin thrill out of it, if there's someone that can do it better than you, cheaper than you, or quicker than you, they should be doing it, not you.
Absolutely agree with that completely. The other thing, to your point you made there about if one day you sell the business, well, if that business lives through you and exists in your head, how much is your business worth?
Nothing.
If your business is automated, procedurized, and can run efficiently, if you go away, you leave it for 2 months, now you've got a business that's valuable.
And I see that in managers as well. When I used to be employed, there were certain kinds of people that they thought it made them better in the eyes of the employer, better in the eyes of the company, if when they went away for a week or 2 weeks on holiday, everything fell apart. Because if everything falls apart when you're not there, it means you're brilliant at what you do and it needs you to be there. But what good managers understand is that if they go away for 2 weeks and everything runs perfectly without them being there, that means they've done a cracking job. Not everybody seems to get that, I feel.
It's sadly true and more common than it should be. And if I look back to, the 1990s, when I first started my career, the early 1990s, I'm a bit old, it was very, very common at that time for people to behave in that way, because that's the business culture at the time. At the time, you'd be a problem for you to take phone calls and take your laptop on holiday, because we didn't have Wi-Fi and very few people had mobile phones. But the best kind of manager actually is the person who is able to direct and interject and assist their team using the unique set of glasses they've been given. Because when you step outside of the day-to-day role, my background is sales, so I would lead sales teams. When I was in sales, there were lots of things going wrong all the time. I was just trying to make the deals work all the time. As soon as I came out of the direct sales role and went into a leadership position, it was a miracle to me, because suddenly I could see everything else around me that was causing my team frustration and holding their performance back. Because you can when you're looking from the outside in. And from a coaching perspective, and this is where I suppose I got my real foundation in coaching, and I've carried through to my work today, I'm able to speak to clients and see all the things that they can't see, because they're just in it all the time. And I had an interesting meeting with a client last week, and we're quite early stage with those guys. They had ramped their business up, and actually it was causing them a lot of frustration and things were going wrong, so they pulled it back again. They've made it much smaller, and now the owner is working 16-hour days. He's getting paid handsomely for doing it, but he's working 16-hour days, and it's not what he wants to do. It's not sustainable for him. So the planning work we're doing with him is, here's the end goal, but how are we going to get to the end goal? It begins with you being prepared to say, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to sacrifice some sales performance against volume, because the people who will be doing the sales will not do it as well as me, but the people who will be doing it we'll have more people to speak to. There'll be more salespeople. There'll be more customers, and therefore our net return will be considerably higher. Yeah. But you have to accept that. And if you can't accept that, then you will remain that small business that doesn't provide for you properly, doesn't give you the time you need, doesn't give you the freedom you need, and will do nothing but frustrate you. And you will end up hating it, and you won't be able to sell it for a bean.
Which means it'll be very difficult for you to retire because you won't be able to afford to retire because you won't have the income coming in and you'll have no windfall from selling the business.
Yeah, and interestingly, that same person said to me, I don't need to worry about a pension because my house is my pension. Wrong, my friend. Wrong.
Oh. Yeah, I've heard
wrong.
that.
That's the roof over your head, that is.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
Yeah. What do you say to business owners that, cause I've heard Richard Branson talk about this, who say, I don't want to empower my staff. I don't want to give them the responsibility. I don't want to have them dealing with all the clients and the sales because what if they leave and set up in competition? Again, that's a huge thing trades say. But I think it was Richard Branson said people worry about what happens if you don't train your staff. Sorry, if you train your staff and they leave. Mm-hmm. But what happens if you don't train them and they stay? So what do you say to business owners that say, I don't want to do this because I'm worried my staff are going to leave. I don't want to take on an apprentice because I think he's going to go and set up in competition. How do you get over that hurdle?
Well, look, you control what you can control. If your staff inevitably are going to leave, they will really leave if they're dissatisfied with what they're doing, right? So good people will stay with you if good people feel valued and empowered. If they're truly good, then you'll want to give them an incentive to stay. And that incentive could be, and arguably should be, part of your business. Because there's nothing wrong with doing that, right? Because actually what you're then doing is you're planning for the future, right? Who's going to form part of the ascension that allows you to step back from your business in the future with a business that continually runs without you for however long you want it to. So succession planning is really important. And if you want to do it well, empower the people that work for you so they feel empowered and valued. When they're truly, truly good, incentivize them further to stay and give them a percentage of that business. Now, the argument there is, why should I? I've built this, right? My business. Well, it's only ever going to stay your business then, isn't it? And it will never be what you want it to be. And it will never have the time that you want to have. Imagine this world. You wake up on a Monday morning and you decide what you're going to do with your day. You decide whether you're going to go to work. You decide whether you're going to play golf. You decide whether you're going to spend the day out with your wife. You decide. Why can you decide? Because there's people in your business that are running it perfectly efficiently without you. It's a shift in mindset. And listen, don't get me wrong. A lot of people don't want to make the shift. Part of the problem some people have of working with a business coach, believe it or not, is because they do not want the accountability. Well, then they're not coachable, are they?
They don't want the accountability.
They don't want the accountability. They don't want to sit down with someone on a weekly basis, review what they were going to put into place in the coming week, and have been unable to do it. Well, the accountability actually should look like this. All right, let's look at what got in the way of you not doing what you wanted to do, right? Let's dissect that, because that's the area that we need to fix. Whereas some people take it as, well, I don't want to be critiqued on what I do. I've built this business. It's done really well with me in it all the time. I've done fine without a coach. Well, why are we talking to each other if you've been doing that well? So it's that accountability is fundamental. It's one of the things I introduce in the earliest conversations with prospective clients. I ask them how they feel about accountability, being accountable to somebody outside of the business. And if the answer there is it's not something that I'm interested in doing, then the answer from me is quite simple. You're just not ready for coaching yet then, because it's fundamental.
So they take the attitude that I started a business, I'm my own boss, I don't need someone else to be telling me what I should be doing. That's my responsibility. If I wanted to do that, I'd be employed or I'd go to school or something. They're the people you can't help.
Yeah, but that's a misconception, though. You see, because if their understanding of accountability is, I don't want someone telling me what to do. After all, I started my business so I didn't have to have someone telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's not accountability, right? Not from a coaching perspective. From a coaching perspective, it's let's work out what's getting in your way, because those things won't disappear overnight. Those problems will repeat themselves to an extent. And what we need to do in the earliest stages of the coaching and business owner relationship is identify what they are, how are we going to fix them. Fixing them might be stop doing the things you're shit at, give it to someone who's good at it, empower your team to pick up responsibility, let them lead, let them make mistakes. If they make mistakes, let them fix it. If they get it right, celebrate them, right? But so accountability is never about, well, listen, you said you were going to do this and you didn't, right? Accountability is, however, here's what we set out. Did you manage to do it? No, you didn't. All right, let's now take a look at what got in the way and prevented you from doing that. Because coaching isn't about giving people the answers, because the answers could be different for everybody. Coaching is about helping people understand what the answers are. Now, the truth about that is that most business owners, they'll already know those answers. They just won't know they know those answers. So a big part of my role is taking them to a point of self-realization where they have that wonderful moment where they say, I've got it. I know what to do next. And then we go into, all right, tell me about that. What do you need to do next? What's going to prevent you from doing that? What's going to help you achieve that goal? What are the mechanisms we can put in place that help you see that through? Because there's no benefit to me going in and giving people the answers, because they might be the wrong answers for them for a start. It could just be my opinion. There's a far greater benefit to helping them get to the conclusion where they can say, now I know how to do it. And that works for them because they know how to do it. Then my next step is to really start washing through that. All right, so let's optimize that thought now. How can we make it really good? How can we refine it? How can we make it a workable practice?
It's interesting. When you were saying that then, it made me realize, remember a particular sales training I'd been on, where from our perspective, for example, we'll talk to clients about their websites, their marketing, and how we can increase the number of leads they're getting and what those leads are worth to them. And if we tell someone, this is how much money you could make, or this is how much your sales will increase, it doesn't have that impact. If we let them work it out and they come up with the number themselves, far more likely to make a sale because they've arrived at the conclusion rather than us telling them, which is similar to what you said for coaching. So are there a lot of parallels between sales and coaching?
Yes, there are. And let me put that down to my own experience, right? So I learned my coaching foundations through leading sales teams. But a sales process, let's put it like this. I meet with a client in a sales process, and I tell them about all of the great things that this will achieve for them. Well, then I'm just telling them all the things that it's going to achieve for them. I'm a salesman. I've got a vested interest in them fulfilling their dream of what the service is going to provide for them. Now let's spin that back. What do you want this service to provide for you? What's your goal? What's your objective? What do you want to achieve? Now we know that. Okay, so let's talk about where you see this service slotting in to your goals and your objectives. So now they're now thinking, okay, well, your service does this, right? So what box does that check for you? It checks this box, and so on and so on. So there are distinct similarities. Now, sales, however, is a world full of misunderstandings, right? And I say that because, love a smirk, right? I say that because so many salespeople think they've got to sell something. They haven't. They've got to listen. They've got to ask questions. And when I speak to clients who do not have a sales background, one of the first things I say to them is you are likely to be the best possible salesperson you'll find then, right? Because you haven't been misinformed about what sales is. Sales is not preaching to people and having a wonderful old phrase, the gift of the gab. The worst thing that anyone could have, right? When it comes to sales. Sales is a process. That's all it is. What's important to learn, however, is how to manage and guide the process. That's really all you need to know, because we live in an incredibly well-informed world when today upwards of 80% of the decision-making process has been made before the client even talks to a sales representative. They already know the product, they know the problem, they know the product, they know the company that they're approaching, they understand the services and what they think it will do for them. So what's next? Well, that last 20%, that's really, really fundamental, because it's getting that part of the process right. And that's where a lot of salespeople get it wrong.
Because they just talk and talk and talk and preach, and they're not asking the questions.
And they try to be cheaper.
Yes, and I've had this conversation 3 or 4 times over the last couple of weeks, and I always bring it back to what the marketing manager at Game, where I used to work 25 years ago, told me when we were competing against Tesco and Sainsbury's for video game releases on day one. And they would always put up a banner saying, we're the cheapest for this particular video game on day of release. And then we would reduce it and put a banner up saying we're cheaper than Sainsbury's, and we'd phone them and say, no, you're not. You need to take that banner down because you're not the cheapest. There was a big worry amongst our buying team about whether we should put prices on advertising or whether we should leave the prices off. But we said, no, put the prices on. If somebody undercuts us, that's fine. Because Brian said to me that if you win a customer on price, you'll lose a customer on price.
Yeah.
You need to win them on service and quality and trust. That's what keeps customers.
Yeah, and it's tough to do in a commoditized market, right? And, there are some commoditized industries, largely in the tech sector, where they will be almost entirely price focused. That's where it will begin. And actually, that's the client expectation in many cases. So I was working with a company recently. They're in a really, really commoditized part of the tech market. And the problem was, got the appointment, met the client, delivered the value proposition, gave them a quote. Client stopped talking to them. And I've seen this a lot of times on LinkedIn where people ask the question, what do you do when a client starts ghosting you, right? Well, my answer is always the same, stay front of mind. So if from the moment you have had confirmation you're going to meet that client, and arguably long before that point, right, you're delivering value to them through regular communication, right? And that should be written communication and ideally through email, because you're delivering value to them, not trying to sell to them at any point in the game, right?
Yeah.
You're now in front of the client, you've now met the client, and now you're continuing your value sharing. Value sharing takes messaging, it takes video format, could be just voice notes that you're dropping to them, but ideally video within email, text within email, and it's continually sharing value. And the value is about the value you offer your clients, what your clients say about you, the best services that are hot right now, why this technology works, where it falls down, what should you look for in this particular type of technology. This is useful information. This is staying front of mind. So when you're going through the process where that client, if they have now gone, right, now I've got one quote, I'm going to go and find a cheaper one. What you want to do is remind them of why they met with you in the first place. Because what you want from that is for them to come to that realization of, actually, I don't care if I can get this for £100 less. I care who can deliver this service to me in the best possible way, who's going to support me through the duration of the agreement in the best possible way. And it comes down to people as well. Who do I actually like? Because I want to buy from this person. Now, if you deliver a quote and you then ring them up 3 times a day and email them twice a week and they're not talking to you and your refugees are getting frustrated, And then when you finally do talk to them or receive an email from them, and the reply is, we've gone with someone else. Well, why did you go with them? Well, they were cheaper than you. Well, then you haven't done your job well. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't a silver bullet, right? Doing this is not guaranteeing that you will win every sale you go after. But what it will do is two things. One is it will enhance your chances significantly, and the other will show that you are not a price-driven organization. And by not being price-driven, you've already begun to create a bit of a blue ocean offer for yourself.
Because you've alluded to there is that people buy from people.
They do,
which a
absolutely.
lot of business owners forget. Now, you mentioned you dropped in their value proposition. A lot of people don't know what that is. So how would a business that hasn't heard of a value proposition actually go about creating it and conveying it to their potential customers?
Begin with the questions that your potential customers are asking about your service, your industry, your offer. Do not begin with, this is who we are, this is how great we are, these are the right products, these are the great things that do wonderful things for people. It's the wrong place to start, because your potential client is not really interested in that. They're more interested in, what can this do for me? Why will it do it for me? What should I be looking for in this product? Now, if your value proposition answers those questions and your messaging is regular, you're building credibility and you're building trust and you're building authority. So start with, what are the questions that people are asking about what I do and what services I provide and the type of offer we have? And when I've got those answers, and they're out there and they're easy enough to get, you can go to Answer the Public. You can go to any of the AI engines. Some do it better than others. For those sorts of questions, Perplexity is very good. ChatGPT is very good for those, to get answers to those kind of questions as well. Perplexity is quite good for those that don't know. I'm preaching to the uninitiated here. Is an AI that bases itself on facts. Yeah, so what's factually correct? Whereas Chat is my mate, actually. We talk on a regular basis. Every day we're doing stuff together. And Chat will give you some really good insights, but it depends what you're actually looking for. So use both of them to get the information.
Chat
together.
might make it up and pretend he knows what he's talking. He's like your mate from Stoke. He could be lying.
Do you know what, though? I'll take a sidestep from our topic for a moment. So I've been working on one of my novels with Chat. So I write books as well, right? And Chat gave me some very favourable response after having worked through the first draft edit on this particular book. And I got an email this morning from my editor who shared Chat's opinion. Both were positive, incidentally. An editor's job is not to be positive if what you've written is shit. He's got to tell you, right? Or she's got to tell you. They need to tell you, right? Because you need to improve it. But both were very positive. So on that basis, Chat did not lie. Chat was a true advocate of my work, and is a loyal compadre of mine. I won't have bad things said about or her.
Even though it does make things up occasionally.
It does make things up occasionally, that much is true.
So researching your target client and what it is that they need to know, what problems they have with your industry or problems they have that your industry solves, that's a good use of AI.
It is, yeah, it's a good use of AI, because when we have the answers to those questions, we want to push them out in a couple of ways, right? So we want to be pushing them out on regular email communication to the client, right? Now, people's inboxes do get full and people do delete a lot of what comes in, but what do they keep? What do they read? The things that are interesting to them, the things that are valuable to them. And if that's what you're sharing, you have a far greater chance of staying on their radar. Also, that information should be going onto their websites. So they should have a knowledge base on their websites. The questions you ask, the things you want to know, right? They can title it whatever they want, but it should be provocative enough to get people to go, what's that all about then? And within there are those questions, and they're answered. And also it helps them with their searching. You know more about websites than I do, but one of the pressing problems, I suspect, for anybody who relied heavily on SEO previously was zero-click searches. Well, imagine now if you're answering the question directly that's being asked in the search engine, you've got a far greater chance of being picked up on the zero-click search.
Yeah. Yeah, because you used to be able to be answering the question and you'd end up on what's called a featured snippet at the top of Google. Right. And we had clients that had hundreds, thousands of featured snippets, and some of those could bring in thousands of visitors per year for individual posts. And of course, that's all gone. So we have some sites that have dropped 50, 60,000 visits a year, have just disappeared, gone into the ether because of Google AI overview. So there are zero-click searches now. People are finding the answer straight away. But it's how do you get recommended in that? How do you get ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude to recommend you, to see you as an authority? That's what's important now. And it's exactly what you've just been saying. It's about providing value. It's about creating a value proposition and giving your target client, your target customer, exactly what they are looking for in the answers to their problems. Because if you're not doing it, your competitors will be. You know, when we first started, we made one of the fundamental mistakes that you've kind of touched on there, which is when you're talking to a potential client, don't start talking about, we can do this, we can do that, we can do something else. Our proposals right at the beginning of Engage Web, first page of the proposal was about us and about our history and about the company and about why we started. So I think maybe the first 2 or 3 pages was basically about Engage Web. And it wasn't until we went through some quite rigorous sales training that we realized that's a complete load of shit. That's not going to work. We need to be looking at the business we're speaking to, making it about them and targeting it about them. And it seems so obvious. When we found that out, it seems so obvious, and I still see people doing it now. I see proposals doing it. I see people start presentations talking, this is me, this is when I started, this is the qualifications I've got, this is how long I've been doing it. And I just think, why is everyone still doing that? And how can we stop people doing that? Should we stop people doing that? I don't know.
That's an interesting one. Because it's clear it's to the advantage of the person who doesn't do it, right?
Yeah, trade secret, but an obvious secret, but a trade secret.
But you know what? It comes down to effort, right? Now, when you're wrapped up in your job, and whether it's a corporate job or whether it's a small business you're working for, there will be mechanisms, methods, and approaches that are ingrained in that business. And picking up those really bad habits when you join a new company can happen very, very easily, because culturally that's the way the business works.
We've always done it like this, so we're going to continue to do it like this.
Exactly, yeah. Why? Because it works. Does it though? Right? Does it actually work? Or are you just saying that because perhaps you're too afraid to try something new? I'm working with a client at the moment, and we're doing a bit of a radical overhaul on what she does, and one of the things she does is a regular newsletter. And part of the conversation I had to have with her is, your newsletter's asking people to work too hard. And she said, well, how? So, well, you're putting some content in there and immediately you're telling people to go to this link to read more about it. The newsletter's full of those links and opportunities for people to share, but that means they've got to put some effort in to go and do it. So I'm doing work with her at the moment, which is entirely overhauling what she's doing, but I know it will have a far more positive reaction than what she's getting at the moment. She's not doing bad, don't get me wrong. She's well qualified, well established, but this is suddenly going to make life so much easier for the recipient, because they can get what they want really, really quickly. The read is under 4 minutes. It's pacey. We've broken up the paragraphs, short sentences. It's punchy. It's value-based. It's interesting. I want to read this. I finished reading it. Happy days. I'm off. I'll get another one next week. I'll pick it up then. And by the way, if I want to go and look at it, she's put, for more information on any of these articles, press here, right? So problem is solved to an extent there. But how do you go into, if you join a new company and you want to bring those ideas with you, well, actually the time to find out whether that's going to be a possibility is not when you joined, it's when you're in your first interview. Yeah. So you want to be asking whether they're open to you delivering new concepts, things that are different from what they're doing at the moment. And that should be based on the previous question, which is, tell me about what you're doing at the moment with your marketing. Tell me what your outreach looks like. Tell me what your messaging is like. I've looked on your website. I'll be honest, it doesn't tell people a lot about what they want to hear. It just tells them a lot about you.
Yeah.
Now, the company that says, Jesus, this guy is too much for us, well, actually, they're the wrong company for you to work for, aren't they? Right? So you'll find the right one.
Do you know, we've spoken to quite a few of those as well, where you'll look at the website and you'll think it looks like a hobbyist business or a part-time business, or there's no credibility whatsoever, and you speak to them and find out they're doing work for like the MOD or the Air Force or various things. None of this is on your website. None of this credibility is there. Anyone looking at it would have no idea you operate at this level. Why aren't you showing that? I don't know. We've never shown that. And it just beggars belief how they don't seem to want to. They don't seem to want to adapt. They don't seem to want to change.
I think it comes down to the importance that they see that media gives, right? Is it important enough for us to change it? Well, look, we've got a website. That's all that matters, right? Because we put a website up. I was speaking to, they're not a client of mine, incidentally. It happens to be a personal friend of mine who rang me for some advice. He's just started a business. He's very excited. I said, let's have a quick look at your website. It was awful. Right. But the worst part was the About Me section. It was their terms and conditions.
Oh,
I know. So why? That's contractual information. Why are you publicizing it on your website? It's the last thing I'm interested if I've got a damp and mold problem, which is what you do. And what your website doesn't tell anybody is about all of the problems to do with damp and mold, how it can be affecting their health, why it's important, what funding is available, what grants are available, what mechanisms you have in place to make solving this problem financially financially convenient and personally convenient for them. You're not doing any of that. And this is a new business. No excuse. He hasn't rung me since.
Has he not? Oh,
why.
right. Do you think maybe you upset him?
No, really, no. Me. Honestly, I was blunter with him than I would be with any clients, but I've known him all my life almost, so I'm allowed to be.
Yeah.
Still, honestly, the penny didn't drop. It never does with him. Honestly, bless him. I love him dearly. My God, no, he never takes any advice.
Here's a question for you. You must have come across this as well. So if someone's potentially looking at doing some coaching work with you, or they're potentially looking at doing some marketing with us, and they say, we haven't got the budget at the moment, we're waiting for the sales to start or the sales to ramp up before we can invest in coaching or before we can invest in marketing. And I asked this because we've literally had this today. What's the way to respond to that one?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's classic chicken and egg, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. What's magically going to make those sales ramp up if you don't do something about it? Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the question. Okay. So you're waiting for the sales to ramp up. Tell me about what you're doing at the moment to affect the increase in sales. And they'll give you an answer. And how successful has that been? And they'll give you an answer. And how long have you been doing it? We know the answer because they're waiting for more sales. We know nothing of what they're doing is working. So none of that's actually working then. Not in the way we want it to, no. But once we've got the money, we'll be back to you. Okay. So if money wasn't an issue, then what would you want from your website? What would you want it to deliver to you? So now we're into the, okay, well, let me think about that. And now we really want to get them thinking. This isn't about money at the moment. This is about, if you choose this platform to be one of the main ways in which you're going to attract the clients that you really want, right? What will it deliver to you? But before we do that, because we now know what your outcome desire is, but before we do that, who are you actually trying to reach? And that's an interesting one, James. Darren. Darren. Jameson earlier.
I've been called worse.
It's all right. Edit it.
It's okay, fine, yeah. We'll cut that out.
Cut that out.
Not cutting that out. No.
This is a very regular conversation I have, because when we get to the yeah, here's the outcome we want. Okay, and these are all the things you're doing to get it, and they're not working. Tell me then, who are you trying to reach? Anybody.
Oh,
Well, you're speaking to nobody, right?
classic.
So then when you start drilling down with people, tell me more about the clients that you have, the best ones, the ones that pay you best, give you least problems, and listen to what you say. How many of those do you have? It's a fairly short list for most businesses that aren't doing particularly well. What is it about those customers that you like working with? And now we're into the reasons why they really enjoy working with that client. Interestingly, they're often the ones that are way too heavily leveraged in the business as well. Yeah, they're supporting the business much too heavily.
Yeah.
So now let's take, that's the kind of customer you really like working with. How do we repeat that? What are the common themes in those customers? Because what we're trying to do here is identify what the ideal customer profile is, right? That's what we want to achieve. Because once we've got that right, we're now in a position where we can message to them. Now, what you've done through this process of however long that conversation has taken to what's working, what isn't working, what's the outcome you really want from the website, who's your ideal customer profile, what do they actually look like, and let's really get into that. By the end of that conversation, you've built so much credibility with the client that now they're looking for ways, or should be looking for ways, unless they are completely closed off, in which case you're wasting your time in the first place. But now the question they're asking themselves is not, we need more sales to afford this. It's, how are we going to get the money to pay for this service so that we can get more sales? Because it's going to deliver the messaging that we want. So it just comes back to, let's get into the conversation about what's important to you, customer. What do you want? What kind of customers do you want? And then what's the right website going to look like then for you to do that? So we've completely gone from, I'm trying to flog you a website, here, buy it, it's great, to now you know why it's really important to you. The question they're asking themselves is, how am I going to get the money to do this? And they'll find it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with everything, isn't it? If the need is great enough, they'll find the money.
Yeah.
Because the money is never really the problem. The problem is they don't see enough value in what it is that you're looking to sell to them in order for them to find the money. The pain of what they're experiencing now isn't great enough to make them want to find the money. Or you haven't pulled the pain out of them enough, rather than the pain not being great enough.
Yeah. And this is genuine pain we're talking about, right? This isn't a sales tactic.
Oh,
this is just being very, very clear on what's hurting them.
It's easy, really, when you break it down like that, isn't it?
But you're always going to get closed people, aren't you?
You are,
and actually, they're the ones you don't want to work with anyway.
Exactly, they are. It's nice when somebody disqualifies themselves very quickly. Saves you a lot of time.
It does.
Well, speaking of time, we're almost out.
We're almost there, aren't we?
We're almost out of time. I know. I said it would go fast. So if someone has been listening to this and they think, I love what you've said, I would love to find out more about you, I would love to get in contact with you, I would love to work with you, what is the best way somebody can reach out to you?
They can get me on LinkedIn, so they just need to search for me, search Rod and surname Kuchta, which is spelled uniquely Kuchta, and very few people get that right. I've probably got it wrong myself a few times. So LinkedIn's a good place to find me, or they can go to kuchconsulting.co.uk and they can find me there. They can get in touch with me through that website, and we can chat.
Fantastic. I will put the links for those underneath the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Audible, or something else, it is down in the show notes below. So just scroll down and you'll find the links to Rod. So you can click through and connect with Rod direct. It's easy for me to say, directly from there. So Rod, thank you very much for being a guest on The Engaging Marketeer. I have learnt so much in the last hour or so.
Well, it's been my absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you.